Well, welcome to Round Glass. I'm Vishvapani Blomfield, and thank you so much for joining me for this series, Qualities of Awareness. And in today's practice, we're going to be connecting with a basic trust in ourselves and our experience. So that the quality today is trust. We can just start to reflect, who do we trust in our lives? Who or what can we rely on? So invitation is to share that in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So here's an experience of my own that I think relates to trust. Now, for the last decade, I've been working as a freelance mindfulness teacher. And one of the biggest projects I've been asked to do is working in the British criminal justice system. And so I've taught many courses for men in prison and men on probation. And walking into a prison for the very first time was quite a shock. There's the steel walls, there's a razor wire, there's all of the security, there's very little vegetation, very little green. And then above all, there's the atmosphere. Everyone's on edge. There's a sense of frustrated energy. Now, the people I worked with had committed serious offences, and some of them were serving long sentences. So sitting down with them for the first time, actually I felt nervous. Was I safe? And also, could I relate to these people whose experience was so different from my own? The room was tense. But then what I realized was that they were feeling much more unsafe than I was. I was protected by the prison security, the prison staff, but they were being controlled. And how could I expect them to relax into meditation when this really wasn't a safe place for them? There were threats inside the prison. Then, of course, there was their offence, and many of them were haunted by what they'd done. And then, of course, there were all of the demons that were there in their past. So they didn't trust enough. They didn't trust the environment, and so they couldn't let down their guard. In fact, they didn't really trust themselves enough to open up to their own experience. And I realized that my job was to help them feel as safe as possible in the environment that we had, to help them find the inner space in which they could be okay, even just for a moment, And there was the issue about whether people who'd done these terrible things should be feeling okay. But it also became clear to me that the only way to really experience the remorse that was there was to feel it was okay to have your experience. So one way to think about meditation is that we're developing qualities that we don't yet have. So the mind is distracted, but we can develop focus, we can develop calm. Now, another way is to think that we already have the qualities that we need, and we just need to open up to them. And in the Buddhist tradition, which I practice in, we find both of these approaches. Now, neither is right or wrong. We need both. But it is incredibly helpful to develop a sense of trust in our own wisdom and our capacity to find the way. And feeling safe in the present moment is a good start. So for most of us, this isn't a matter of external threats, though, the pandemic has been a reminder that our lives are insecure. But then even without that, there are still the inner voices that tell us things aren't okay. We aren't good enough. To be good enough, we need to be better, smarter, thinner, all of that. So, just for the period of the meditation, let's have the intention to set those thoughts aside, right? To have the attitude that this moment is enough. We don't need to be somewhere else. We don't need to be doing anything else. This is enough. And that's what we can trust. We can trust what's already here. So who can you trust in your life? I see some of you shared in the chat. You trust your life partners, your son, your brother, your sister-in-law. Okay, lovely. Some family, tried and true best friends. So it's really good to hear from some of you about the things you trust. Let's take that into the practice itself. If there's a person you trust, that's a building block for trusting the situation, trusting ourselves. So let's start by deciding how we want to sit for this practice. So finding a way that's supportive. We do need to be comfortable. We need to let our weight rest down so the body isn't having to strain. And at the same time, we want to be alert. We want to be open. So we'll work with that a little bit in the practice. Another thing that helps us to feel okay is to encourage ourselves to arrive fully. And that means just being conscious that we're making a transition. So we're letting go of the things we have been doing. It's okay to put them down. It's okay for them to just rest, come to sit like animals, the cows in a field around us. They're just sitting down. All of that stuff is resting. And taking the time to really be here, feeling the body. Maybe take a breath, take a deeper breath than normal. Breathing out. And letting the breath flow out slowly. Let's do that again. Let's breathe in. And breathe out. So, as we bring our awareness to this moment, to sitting here, feeling how the weight rests on the floor. So however we're positioned, whether we're sitting on the floor in a chair or whether we're lying down, the weight is resting. Which means that gravity is working on the body. Gravity is drawing us down. And where gravity draws us down, we feel the contact with the floor. And that contact is a sense of pressure, touch, so let's take our attention right into those sensations of contact. Hands resting on the thighs or wherever is comfortable. Settling. And we can have a sense of what's underneath us. So there's the floor. The floor, if we're in a building, rests on foundations, and those foundations rest in the earth. And the earth extends into the whole planet, planet Earth. And gravity draws us down towards the center of the earth. So we can let the weight go into the mass of the planet that's beneath us. Breathing, settling. So having a sense of being supported, of grounding ourselves, supported by something that's much bigger than me. Resting. Having a sense of the body as a whole. Feeling the breath. I'm just going to notice the sensations of the breathing. But we'll also just reflect a little on the breath. The body knows how to breathe. Everyone has their own unique rhythm. But we breathe maybe 11 or 12 times a minute, it might vary. And thousands of times in a day, without thinking about it. So the body knows how to breathe. So let's notice the out breath. As we breathe out, the muscles soften. release. That brings ease. So, noticing the breath, noticing the ease and softening as we breathe out. So breathing out and letting go. The body knows how to let go. We can feel it every time we breathe. Letting go. So trusting the body's capacity to let go, to soothe, everything that's there in the out-breath. Then noticing the in-breath, again maybe taking a slightly deeper breath, feeling how the chest fills, the tummy swells. When this happens, oxygen is coming into the lungs and being passed into the blood. So we're being nourished by the breath. Energy flows. Body rises. Feeling that the body knows how to be nourished. How to feed on the air. So sensing the body's wisdom. This simple act of breathing. This exchange. Receiving and giving and receiving. Rising and letting go. And as we sit, as we breathe, feeling the core of the body, the torso, strong and stable, like the trunk of a tree. and rising up from the earth like a tree trunk. At the core of the body, the center, is there a place within us that feels like the center, the core? The pith. Part of us that knows, that sense in the belly, in the guts, in the heart. A sense, a feeling, an intuition. Just breathing into that core. Imagining that the breath is flowing into the heart, into the belly. Just seeing what happens. Is it a sense? Is it an image? Something within us that we can trust. Now, expanding our awareness through the body as a whole. We're just going to start to gently externalize our awareness. So we're going to be making a transition, quite a gentle transition, which we can foster, we can encourage by moving a little, but just remembering that this transition needs time, and we can give it time. In fact, it may be that you want to finish the practice now, but then again it may be actually you want to stay sitting for longer. That's absolutely fine, of course. And you could mute the audio, or you could just listen but stay with your experience if you've got the time for that. Otherwise, we'll start to bring the practice to a close, and we're going to open our eyes, but remembering to take as much of ourselves with us from the practice to what comes next. And so, opening our eyes, but that doesn't necessarily mean the practice is over. It's not a hard and fast thing. And we can just take time now to absorb the practice. And just might be some reflections about what happened today. It might be more of a feeling sense. Whatever happened in today's practice, just staying with that. It's taking this time now to notice and to reflect. So in his book, Full Catastrophe Living, the mindfulness teacher John Kabat-Zinn says this: in practicing mindfulness, you are practicing taking responsibility for being yourself and learning to listen and trust your own being. So that's quite big, that's quite profound. And it might be a big change from maybe a more habitual way of being. You might find that you're judging yourself, for example. You might have a voice that says, well, I spend half my time planning and the other half worrying. Now, I trust myself when I'm at my best, but the question is, how do I get to be at my best? And right now I'm not. So, now that isn't trust. Trust starts right now. This fretful, grumpy mind, this grumpy person, now that is who I need to trust, because below the grumpiness and below the worry is something else. So what we were exploring in the practice is the sense in which the mind and the body know how to settle. The body knows how to breathe. It clearly knows how to breathe. Even if you have breathing difficulties, your body knows how to breathe. The heart knows how to pump blood. You don't have to tell it. You have to make it happen. So that capacity to settle is built into the parasympathetic nervous system. And then we've been in the world for all these years. And on some level, I think we've already learned its lessons. We've already learned the lessons that life is giving us. What are those lessons? Well, I could voice them, but really it's for you. I mean, one lesson is things change. That may sound like a big kind of insight type experience, but it's there evident in our experience all the time. Things change and we need to live with that. So we need to trust that we really understand the meaning of change. So another word for trust is faith. Faith. Having faith in ourselves, having faith in our minds, our capacity to find the way in the dark. And that's what we need to learn, or maybe relearn. And even in prisons and for men on probation, I've seen that happen again and again. Not for everyone, it's hard, but for quite a lot of people who felt completely lost, meditation helped them become more stable and start to find their way again. So let's finish with a poem, or some lines from a poem anyway. It's by someone called Jack Gilbert, and it's called Horses at Midnight Without a Moon. And it's about the things we sense or intuit. We know the horses are there in the dark meadow because we can smell them, can hear them breathing. Our spirit persists like a man struggling through the frozen valley who suddenly smells flowers and realizes the snow is melting out of sight on top of the mountain, knows that spring has begun. So thank you for sharing this time, and please continue to explore meditation with us. So check out our daily live meditations at round.glass or on our app, and have a good day and keep the faith.